Going into the fall of 2009, Universal Orlando Resort would again host the best Halloween event in the world, HaIIoween Horror Nights, for its 19th year at Universal Studios Florida. This year's event would bring all new haunts and entertainment, but bring together popular horror film properties for the first time ever. It's showtime. Horror has been ripped from the silver screen. This is SP History. In creating the 2009 HaIIoween Horror Nights event, Universal Orlando would replicate what they did during the 2007 Carnival of Carnage event by having IP-driven haunted houses while also having a completely original theme to the entire event. Also in similar fashion of 2007, they would conjure 3 new popular horror film icons to lead the event, as each would respectively have individual haunted houses. Chucky the Killer Doll from the Child's Play franchise, the Wolfman from the 2010 Universal remake, and Billy the Puppet or Jigsaw from the Saw franchise would be the main draws for this year's event, and bring all new terror for guests coming to HaIIoween Horror Nights. But these movie monsters would not be alone in ushering fear into the event, as a new original Horror Nights character would manifest to be the main icon, as they would go by the name of Julian Browning, or be more referred as the Usher. Browning's backstory was that he was an usher at a once prestigious movie house called the Universal Palace Theater. Browning truly loved the theater and movies, particularly having a liking to horror films, but however, he would take his job very seriously and hated any patrons who dare be disrespectful to his beloved theater. But on one night where Browning's favorite horror film was re-released, The Phantom of the Opera, he would get into an altercation with a rude theatergoer that would change the theater forever. In this altercation, the rude filmgoer had taken Browning's flashlight and tossed it through the movie screen, tearing it in half. Angrier as ever, the usher would go behind the screen to retrieve his prized tool, but while doing so, he would get caught in some lingering ropes hanging, which would eventually lead to him getting strangled to death as his feet were mere inches above the floor. After Browning's unfortunate demise, the Universal Palace Theater would become a beacon of death, as several terrible freak accidents would occur to rude patrons, as seemingly the theater was cursed, or the vengeful spirit of the usher was haunting the cinema and killing anyone who ruins the movie-going experience. Just like last year with Bloody Mary's patients, the different incidents that happened at the Universal Palace Theater would correlate with the individual houses at the event. So with the Usher's backstory as setup, Universal Studios Florida would be turned into the now reopened Universal Palace Theater, as the evil spirit of Julian Browning leads guests in, as a new batch of horror features would be shown in the form of the houses and scare zones, as all types of horror film creatures are literally ripped from the silver screen to terrifying reality. With that said, HaIIoween Horror Nights, ripped from the silver screen, would run again for 23 nights from September to October, as it would host a collection of 8 haunted houses, 6 scare zones, and 2 shows, as guests enter the Universal Palace Theater and face the horrifying movie monsters that lie within. Exploring the houses of the 19th HaIIoween Horror Nights, like said, they would be based off some popular horror IPs, but also feature original takes on classic horror monsters and original stories. The first house would be located inside Soundstage 22 and not only be one of the 3 sub-icon houses, but one of the 3 houses based off classic Universal monsters, as the house would be officially called the Wolfman. Being based off the 2010 remake, guests would be taken into the setting of the film as they encountered a terrifying new take on the classic monster as he ravages the England countryside. Noticeably, the house came out before the film's release, which meant most guests knew nothing of this version of the Wolfman, but served as a teaser to the upcoming film. The second house to be featured would be placed inside Soundstage 23 and be the second house based off a classic Universal monster, as it would be titled Dracula, Legacy, and Blood. In here, guests enter the infamous blood-soaked castle of Vlad Dracula as he and his many immortal brides infest the halls to either make guests want of blood or suffer for eternity. The design of the characters in the house would be very much inspired by the Bram Stoker's Dracula film. Dracula, Legacy in Blood would win House of the Year for 2009. The next house would be the final house based off a classic Universal monster, being also inside Soundstage 23 and be named Frankenstein, Creation of the Damned. Inside the house, guests are transported to the bleak world of Dr. Frankenstein as he tries to rebuild his castle after it's been engulfed in flames in order to perfect the art of resurrection. But his greatest creation, Frankenstein's monster, is out for revenge, and guests are caught in the middle of the battle between the two evils. Frankenstein's monster would have a much more decrepit design, making him more terrifying than ever, and the house would also feature other horrifying creations of Dr. Frankenstein, such as the Bride and many others. The fourth house would be located within the disaster queue and be a new original concept, but also one of the two houses to be produced by famous horror magazine Fangoria, as it would be filled with crazed masked cannibal butchers, as the house was titled Fangoria Presents Leave It to Cleaver. The story of the house had guests entering the facility of Meats, based in Cary, Ohio, and ran by the Meats family, as they invite guests to become their newest produce as their meat has a secret ingredient: human. One interesting Easter egg that could be seen inside the house was a severed head of Bloody Mary, a nod to the previous year's icon. The fifth house of the event would be held in the Jaws queue and be the second of the sub-icon houses, as this one would be simply called Saw. The house would take guests into the world of the first 5 films, as guests encountered the many sinister death traps constructed by Jigsaw himself, as unfortunate victims try to escape and suffer pain like no other, as pigheads hide around to make guests wish it was only a game. Such traps to be featured were the reverse bear trap and the knife chair. The next house will be placed in Sprung-Tet 2 and be the second Fangoria produced concept, as this one would be called Fangoria Presents The Spawning. Also being set in Cary, Ohio, like Leave It to Cleaver, guests entering become volunteers to investigate the sewers below the town, as reptilian creatures named Scolders are reportedly infesting the depths below, only to find out they are very real and super deadly. The 7th house would be located in Sprung-Tent 1 and be the final sub-icon house, as it would be Chucky's Fun House of Horrors, as it was officially named Chucky Friends Till the End. The house would feature an original story, as the killer doll has resurrected many toys to life, and they are deadlier than ever as they look to wreak havoc on all the guests who enter. Such toys to be represented were monkeys in a barrel and green army men, with an extra large Chucky lurking around to kill. The final house of the event would be placed within the Parade Warehouse building and be the icon house for the usher, as it would be named Silver Screams. The house had guests entering the Universal Palace Theater, the usher's forever home, as he presents scenes from classic and modern horror films as they come to horrifying reality. Such films to be presented within would be The Phantom of the Opera, My Bloody Valentine, The Thing, Evil Dead, Shaun of the Dead, and The Strangers. Also within, the usher haunts you throughout as you witness his very own death and his ultimate path of vengeance. This completes the lineup of houses at the 2009 Halloween Horror Nights, as each would represent all types of movie creatures and be the usher's ultimate marathon of horror. Transitioning into the scare zones of this year, there were 6, and they mostly consist of original concepts, as they were extra features to the main lineup being presented at the Universal Palace Theater. The first scare zone will be placed in Plaza of the Stars in Production Central and be called Containment. The zone had guests stuck in the streets as the toxic green mist fills the air, which has turned everyone around into melting globs of flesh as they lunge out at bystanders. The next zone would be in Shrek Alley in Production Central and be an undead war zone, as it was titled War of the Living Dead. Here, Guests enter a remote island where a secret experiment has gone wrong, as two zombie armies of Nazis and Allied forces are stuck in an endless undead battle, with guests caught in the middle of the action. The third zone would be located in the New York area of the park and be titled Apocalypse City of Cannibals. As the title alludes, the streets of New York are now overrun by angry cannibals as they seek revenge on the humans who forced them down to the sewers and now feast on the innocent. The following zone would be inside Woody Woodpecker's Kid Zone and be based off the 2009 Universal fantasy film Cirque du Freak, The Vampire's Assistant, as the zone was officially named Cirque du Freak. The zone would consist of the many freakish characters that could be seen from the film as they create the ultimate freak show. This zone would also hold the annual appearance of the famous Rat Lady. The fifth zone would be held near Mel's Drive-In and be the devilish version of a drive-in theater, as it would be called Horrorwood Die-In. Here, guests enter an abandoned drive-in as many horror film creatures have left the screen and come to life as they look for fresh victims. Such horror characters to roam here were Norman Bates, Reagan McNeil, Pighead, and many more movie monsters. Just like last year's The Schoolhouse Zone, Universal would construct a large structure for the zone, and this time it would have a large movie screen presenting different clips of horror films represented in the Scare Zone. The final Scare Zone created would be placed in the Hollywood area and be the ultimate Scare Zone for the Chainsaw Drill Team, as it would be called Lights, Camera, Action. In the zone, guests enter the film set of a movie called Chainsaw Drill Team Massacre in 3D. But little did the film crew know, they casted the real Chainsaw Drill Team, and they are now on the set looking to slice the final cut. Though there were 6 Scare Zones listed, Universal would add one unofficial zone on the final weekend of the event, serving as a teaser for next year's 20th anniversary, as it would be labeled as Shadows from the Past. It would be located in Sting Alley in the New York area, a first-time location, and within it, many icons like Jack the Clown, the Caretaker, and even new icon The Usher, along with other Horror Nights characters, could be seen lurking in the shadows, as they tease guests for what's to come at next year's event. Besides the Scare Zones, the event would host 2 shows on each night, both of which being returning shows from previous events. The first show would be in its usual location of the Beetlejuice Graveyard Review stage and be the returning Rocky Horror Picture Show, a tribute. Like previous iterations, it would be the ultimate celebration of the 1975 cult film, as they play out various numbers and scenes live on stage. The other show would be held in the Fear Factor live stage and be the returning Horror Nights original show, Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. The show's plot would involve a new villain, Phil the Ultimate Fanboy, as he has drugged the Wild Stallions and turned their time-traveling booth into a machine that removes movie characters from 2009 from their very own films, and into Phil's very own Land of the Lost, as hijinks and madness ensues and a battle between good and evil. Characters to be included in the show were the cast of 2009 Star Trek, The Wolverine, and Megan Fox. The shows would complete the overall experience at the 19th Halloween Horror Nights event, maintaining its tradition of great street atmosphere and entertainment, as they added to the overall enjoyment of this year's festivities. Overall, Halloween Horror Nights, ripped from the silver screen, would continue the massive success the Halloween event has had for so many years before, and showed how it can be more relevant with having more pop culture influences within the different aspects of the event. But with the Universal Palace Theater closed down once again, Halloween Horror Nights would rest for another 365 days, but return in a brand new decade as it would be ready to ring in a new age of darkness.